How do you see open source evolving in enterprise environments?
Yeah, open source really did a big step forward over the last 5-10 years in enterprise as well. Like most of the companies, like SAP, we're building on open source. Open source is in the strategy for our products, but it's also one thing which we take very serious. It's how we contribute into the projects, the selection of the projects, and also like the customers are asking much more about like to us, like what open source projects are using, how you maintain this. So there's much more understanding from the enterprise side around open source happening. And for SAP, I think it's the key thing is for us to be closely involved in all these projects to move them forward, mostly along enterprise features functionality. So this goes into scaling, robustness, security, because these are the key things to run these projects or components of these projects within the bigger software.
And so what you were talking about just a moment ago, SAP has gotten more involved in open source. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, I think it's one of the big secrets about how much SAP is actually involved in open source. We started about 15 years back, first Eclipse IDE, that was one of the big things, but then also OpenJDK, Java. So there's a lot of projects SAP has been actively involved in contributing over the years. I think for us the bigger step was like not only like to be involved, but like also talk more about it, build these connections, work with the community, be here at OSCON, talk with the other contributors, get them together, join the foundations, work with the foundations. So it's became like more of a strategic movement inside SAP about open source. And I think that's also something where we are looking like to work more with the community out there, also like contributing projects like the CLA assistant, it's contributing license assistant, which we contribute about 4 years back to a community. Now it's like taking on a big adoption, and that's also great to see. And we don't want to hide behind this that we are not present in the market. So really like work with the people and also show them like, yeah, like these are the things what SAP puts out. These are the things where SAP is collaborating on in these projects where we're highly active, and make this present for the open source community.
Right. And can you share some of the specific projects you're working on now?
Yeah, so there's a long list of projects. A few like to highlight, which we just really released now just before OSCON, was the Ui5 Web Components. Ui5 Web Components is building on the web component framework and the standards in the browsers. Now we had a similar area where we had components for web in our enterprise environment. It was called OpenUI5. Now we took it into the web component standards. There's about 25 components available, but these are also very robust enterprise featured components. So they can do different languages, they can do Japanese, they can do like left to right and right to left languages. They can do the security, accessibility, very important features. And we took it out now and said, okay, let's make it available as open source to the broader community. What we're looking forward is really like feedback, not only from the enterprise market, but definitely also from the broader web builders and web developers to see how we can bring these open source projects forward. Other projects in Cloud Foundry, Kubernetes, that's where we are definitely looking, how do we get these areas closer together, how can we support it, because we're building our products on Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes. So there's a lot of like deep involvement in these projects from SAP going on.
How would you describe the developer culture at SAP? And can you share maybe some best practices for keeping a culture healthy?
Yeah, I think that's it's a new topic. We also have here a talk at OSCON about developer culture. This is more focusing first on like an engineering culture, what it means, but there's a lot of like overlaps or ties into an open source project culture, etc. So similar, like every company, probably you have engineers, they have a certain culture. It's normally like formed over time and also historically. But it's also something that's especially like for bigger companies like SAP, where we are investing to, on the one hand, have a good understanding on what is our culture. Does the engineers buy into this culture, or are they forming the culture? Like culture is something you need to enable from the top, but like it needs to be built from the grassroots, from the engineers. And so that's a very important topic, of course, if you have a bigger engineering force, how do you build this up? But there's definitely also a lot of learnings for the open source communities, like what is your culture like for your project, like and who are the leads, like how do you understand your culture? Are you making feedback surveys? Are you listening to the surveys? Or what your contributors, for example, in an open source project do? And there's like similar things what we're doing in SAP with culture, and also like from us, it's an open project what we are driving. So we also want to look for the market to work with other companies, other partners, and any developer out there to have a more ongoing discussion. What is an engineering culture? How should you form such a culture? Like how can you collaborate in this and drive it forward?
Well, thank you very much for talking with me today.
Thank you.